Oh.
All the time. So. Oh, give me 1 minute. So I guess we can pull it up here, so I'll straighten my eyes. See.
Thank you.
Well,
I'll say you could borrow mine. I don't know if mine's gonna help though. You could try.
I can see it. I don't know.
All right, 7 o'clock. We're gonna call the Town Council Special Meeting of Tuesday, February 13, 2024 to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Peterson,
Here.
Councilmember Pete,
Here.
Councilmember Fields,
Here.
Councilmember Brown,
Present.
Chair Pro Tem Miles,
Present.
Vice Mayor Nicholson,
Excuse me?
Vice Mayor
Present.
Nicholson. Sorry, Mayor Wood.
Here.
You have a quorum present.
All right. Please join me for a moment of silent prayer and reflection, and then we'll follow it with the pledge. Amen. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, please be seated. All right, next on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt the agenda.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second to adopt the agenda. Any discussions? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Fields,
Yes.
Councilwoman Peterson,
Yes.
Councilman Pete,
Yes.
Councilman Brown. Aye. Chair Pro Tem.
Aye.
Vice Mayor.
Yes.
That's a yes for me. Our agenda has been adopted for the night. Which takes us to our only action item for the night, which is the proposed proffer amendments for rezoning application 2024-001 Colonial Downs Group. I'm gonna start with the town manager, and then I'm gonna ask Mr. Tabor to come forward. Town manager?
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Briefly, I just wanted to highlight a few things as it relates to the proposal that you have before you. The town received the unsolicited proposal back in October of last year. We had a team put together who reviewed the proposal, and we determined that we needed additional members of our team to be put together, provide us some subject matter expert. So our team consisted of myself, our town attorney, Sandra Robinson, our chief financial officer, Stacy Jordan, director of planning and community development, Mr. Reginald Tabor, our director of public work, Mrs. Jonay Prevost White, and we also solicited a consulting firm, the Robert Bob Group. Under his firm, Robert Bob, who was the engagement executive, brings over 40 years of executive management experience in both public and private sectors. Mr. Lorenzo Creighton, who's a subject matter expert on casino gaming, and Mr. George Martin, who is a subject matter expert in construction, real estate, and law and government law. After we reviewed the proposal, our team determined the first proposal was not in the best interest of the town. Therefore, we spent countless hours negotiating with both sides to determine a proposal which was in the best interest of the citizens here in this town. At the end of this meeting, we are confident to say that we are asking your permission to execute 3 agreements, which is a LOI, a memorandum of understanding, and the proposed proffer amendments. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Tabor.
Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, Chair Pro Tem, and members of council. During the September 13, 2021 meeting, the Town of Dumfries Planning Commission held a public hearing, then voted unanimously to recommend approval of the rezoning of 11 parcels totaling 93.5 acres to planned mixed-use district, PMUD, as requested by Colonial Downs Group LLC, which included proffered conditions. During the September 21st, 2021 meeting, the Town of Dumfries Town Council held a public hearing, then voted unanimously to adopt an ordinance approving the rezoning and to accept the proposed proffered conditions. The approved proffered conditions are requirements regarding the use and development of the property. The property owner developer is proposing amendments to the accepted proffered conditions. The proposed conditions require a memorandum of understanding or MOU between the town and CDI related to the park on top of the landfill, which will be a separate agreement. The proffer amendments had to be reviewed by the Planning Commission, then referred with a recommendation for consideration by the Town Council. Public hearings were duly advertised as legally required prior to consideration by both the Planning Commission and the Town Council. Following a public hearing and discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously during the February 12, 2024 meeting last evening to recommend approval of the proposed amendments to the proffered conditions. Staff recommends adoption of the ordinance approving the proposed proffered conditions. And the property owner developer is prepared to present additional information regarding the proffered amendments, proposed amendments to the proffered conditions and related documents. And we will be happy to respond to any questions following the presentation.
Applicant?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, Chair Pro Tem, members of council. My name is Ryan Jordan. I'm the Senior Vice President of Real Estate Development for Churchill Downs Incorporated, parent company of Colonial Downs Group, the applicant for the proffer amendment that we're discussing this evening. A little bit about Churchill Downs Incorporated. In 2022, our company acquired the rights to Colonial Downs Group, and it turned the Rose development that's underway right now here in Dumfries. We acquired those from the previous developer, Peninsula Pacific Entertainment, otherwise known as P2E. We are most famously known for the annual running of the Kentucky Derby on the first Saturday every May, but we also operate historical racing facilities, casino gaming facilities, Twin Spires, online horse race wagering facility, and other online gaming companies. Here's a map just showing you where some of those facilities are located, highlighted in red, the Commonwealth of Virginia, and obviously other states surrounding. We have been in these communities. We've been in lots of communities. We pride ourselves in supporting the communities that we operate within. We have been operating here in Dumfries for a number of years, but we are very excited about opening the Rose Gaming Resort later this year, which we will talk about tonight. So a little bit of background about the Rose Gaming Resort itself. It's located on the site of the former Potomac landfill, bordered by Virginia 234 and I-95. The groundbreaking was held a little over 2 years ago now in January of 2022, and it was proffered to be built over 2 phases. Those 2 phases included several amenities, a public park, 175,000 square foot gaming facility, 8 bars and restaurants, up to 305 hotel rooms, over 2,500 parking spaces, meeting and event space, as well as entertainment and convention center. A few renderings just to go through. These are the restaurants and the hotel rooms that are underway today. I was at the site today and their progress is progressing very well. What you see before you is a sports bar and a race book located inside the gaming facility. There is a fine casual restaurant, a sit-down eating establishment within the facility itself. A food hall, which is going to have 5 unique dining concepts. This shows the entry to the food hall. Guests will be able to enter, choose from many of those concepts, and then sit down at a shared table or shared tables within the food hall concept as well. This rendering view shows you the entrance from the parking garage to the gaming floor. Kind of gives you an idea of what the finishes and the games will look like. You can see the overhead ceiling fixture, a prominent decorative rose tying to the brand of the property itself. This is a rendered view of the hotel lobby. Upscale finishes. We're very excited to unveil this again later this year. And then over 100 hotel rooms currently under construction. This shows you what those will look like when we open the property. So the development, again, was approved by the town in 2021. As I mentioned before, it was outlined to be split into 2 phases. The first phase, per the proffer, was going to include 1,150 HRMs, historic racing machines, up to 155 hotel rooms. Phase 1 includes the public park, as well as the 2,541 parking spaces. It's important to note those are all of the parking spaces required for phase 2 as well. Those are constructed and those are in place as we stand today. Phase 2, per the original proffer, was going to include an additional 650 machines to take us up to 1,800 total machines on the property, up to an additional 150 rooms, bringing the total to 305, a 40,000 square foot entertainment center, event center, and no additional parking spaces because I mentioned they were already built as part of phase 1. The prior ownership group, before Churchill Downs was involved, announced that the group planned to open the gaming floor in October of 2023 and the hotel following in January 2024. It's February 2024. We're not open. It's obviously been delayed. The main result of that delay had to do with the complex construction of various retaining walls to create the roadway, which leads you from Main Street all the way up and around the landfill and gets you back to the roads. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later when we talk about the land base. So as we know, the delayed opening impacted financially the town's revenues. The town had planned for gaming tax revenues as a result of the opening. Because the property didn't open as previously communicated, the town did not receive those. So we started talking with the town and made an offer to contribute to that shortfall. As part of that offer, we were seeking permission to increase the number of games. Our desire to increase the number of games has to do with the customer service that we want to provide at that resort. People that are coming to the property, we don't want them to have to wait around. If they want to play a game, we want to have a game to play them. So that's really what's driving our desire to increase the game count, because when we open, we want people to have a great experience. If they come the first time and they don't have a great experience, our data shows that they're not likely to come back for a second time. So it's important that when we open, we put our best foot forward. So with the agreement, the town of Dumfries that we negotiated is set to receive several additional community benefits that were not contemplated in the initial proffer. We offered to, and we are agreeing to commit $3.6 million to the town to fund that budget shortfall. That $3.6 million assumes that we open by July 31st of this year. And if we don't, we'll contribute an additional $400,000 per month to the town until we open. So this ensures a steady stream of revenue to the town until we open, and that gaming tax revenue does start to flow to the town. In addition, and we'll talk about the park a little bit, we are going to donate $2 million to fund the design and construction of a new community center in the town. We understand this was an effort that was underway already, and we are excited to be able to help contribute financially towards the realization of that community center. In addition, we heard and we understand that the good, well-paying jobs are important as part of this development. We want great people to come work at our facility, and we are happy to state that when the resort opens, all non-tip jobs will pay at least $15 an hour, and we're also going to work with the town to promote these jobs to Dumfries residents. In addition, there is now a binding commitment to develop phase 2. So this was discussed by the previous developer. The terms in the proffer left it to the developer's discretion, but we are now committing to build phase 2 so we can provide assurances that the town is going to receive phase 2 of this proffer. In addition, after last night's planning commission meeting, we heard from Councilman Brown. There was the willingness, or the town wanted to know a date commitment on when we would build phase two. So in addition to what we proposed and was discussed last night, we are going to start the traffic study, which is the first piece of the phase two. We have to do that before phase two is built. We're going to do that within 6 months of opening phase one. So we want to put our foot forward. We are committing to do phase two, and we're going to start with that traffic study within the first 6 months. So that was the benefits to the town. The proffer is amended and corresponds to that agreement, but what it does is it rephases some of the elements of the proffer. So if you look at the various columns, there was the plan to phase one, new phase one, and then the various phases going down the road. So the planned phase one went from 1,150 machines to what we're proposing with the agreement to now to go to 1,650 machines. We have 102 hotel rooms. That's what's being built now. This new phase will have 102 hotel rooms. The event space. So while not a proper condition as part of phase one, we had planned to and started to build 16,500 square feet of event space. We will use a portion of that to accommodate these additional games, but we will still have, when phase one opens, 3,300 square feet of event space. There are meeting rooms, there are 4 meeting rooms and a boardroom as part of the hotel. With phase two, the larger, up to 40,000 square foot conference and event center will be built, and it still will be built as part of phase two. The public park was proffered as part of phase one. It still will be built as part of phase one. And then the parking spaces I've outlined are already built. So one thing that's important to note, we are not changing any of the total commitments as phase one and phase two combined. All the amenities per the original proffer will still be built at the completion of phase two. So discuss this a little bit with the Planning Commission, but we do not anticipate traffic issues as a result of this change. We are preparing to construct all of the proffered offsite improvements. Several are underway. We are extending the northbound left turn lane on Fraley Boulevard. We are completing the Potomac Shores Parkway extension, which was the preferred option on the original proffer that was outlined under the MZP. The proffer called for a conversion of Canal Street to go from two-way to one-way. After discussion with the town, we are keeping that as two-way traffic, but we can revisit that as necessary if in the future we decide that needs to be one-way. Again, we do not expect any adverse impacts on traffic, mainly because we're not changing the amenities offered as part of phase one. The big change in traffic we anticipate, and what we've seen at a lot of our other properties, is when you introduce a new amenity. So the event center in phase two, when you have a concert or you have a big event and lots of people are showing up at one time, you see traffic as a result of that. We're just adding games. We already have parking spaces for people, so they will still continue to arrive to the property. They'll drive and they'll park, but we want to make sure they can play when they're there. So there shouldn't be an impact to traffic as a result of this change. The great benefit too is that the proffer does contemplate a traffic study after phase one and before phase two. So that traffic study will capture the real-time traffic, who's driving to the property. And then as a result of that traffic study, we'll understand what improvements need to be made prior to phase two construction. So phase two will follow after phase one, after completing our diligence. I talked about the traffic study that'll capture the actual trip. We'll work with the town and VDOT to capture or to create a transportation demand management plan that's currently contemplated and still contemplated in the initial proffer. It's important to note, we want to make sure we get phase two right. The property itself is landlocked. You have a landfill on one side, residential on the other, and an interstate on the other side. So once phase two is built, our ability to expand or grow from there is really limited. So when we build phase two, we want to make sure we get it right. This slide just shows you some of the progress and some of the offsite improvements. Area one on this map, we are underway and we'll have complete prior to the opening of phase one, the new stoplight at the entry from Colonial and Main Street, as well as some restriping and some curb work there that I highlighted before. Area two, that's the preferred option, the Potomac Shores Parkway extension. This image is maybe a month or so old, but that developer, it was proffered under another developer's proffer. We worked with them to expedite that work and make sure that it was complete. They are working through some permitting and anticipate opening hopefully really soon as well. So the additional proffer amendments change the sizes of the land base. We're adjusting the size of what was defined in the initial proffer between Land Bay 1 and Land Bay 2. And I've got some exhibits to walk you through that. But I think an important note to make here is that the total amount of green space does not change with this proffer amendment. The new Land Bay 2 per this proffer amendment, will be the parcel that is dedicated to the town after 10 years. That was a term that was negotiated in the original proffer. It contemplated after 10 years' time, or once the post-closure care period of the landfill is complete, that's the parcel that gets dedicated back to the town. So after we worked through the development and worked through the entry road, it made more sense to redefine what that parcel would be so that the town, once it takes over maintenance of the park in 10 years, it's better understood. The initial Land Bay 1 didn't contemplate the new private entry road. And after creating that entry road that I talked about with the retaining walls, we wanted to take responsibility of making sure that we maintained the grass and the trees and the green space on either side of that road. There will be some tall retaining walls. There will be some grass. There will be some trees. We want to ensure that that arrival experience is great for everybody entering and arriving to the property. So we're taking on the responsibility of the maintenance of that green space as part of this delineation. It's also important to note that we anticipate that the closure of the landfill will be complete by this summer. So we are not anticipating a delay. We have been working very hard with DEQ to ensure that we do everything we're supposed to. And we still anticipate that it will be done this summer. What the proper changes is in the event something unforeseen happens, we want to make sure that we can open our facility as soon as possible as well. So this is the initial Land Bay delineation. Land Bay 1 is the area in red. That's where the gaming facility and the hotel sit. The large area in green, that's Land Bay 2. That's the area that initially was proffered to all be dedicated to the town after 10 years. So you can see the red dashed line. That's the road that will take cars from Main Street all the way back to Land Bay 1. And by that kind of separating different parcels, we reallocated the space to make sure we as the owner maintain certain space, and that the town only had to maintain the park and the Land Bay 2 space. So if you look at this slide, this shows you what the new Land Bay 2 and Land Bay 1 would look like. If I'll direct you to the image at the bottom left, this is the zoomed in view that shows the extension of Colonial Street from Main Street. The area in yellow will be, a town road. That's Colonial Street that gets extended a little farther towards the park than it does today. But so the area in yellow becomes a street. The area in green is the new Land Bay 2, and you can see that from the end of Colonial Street, there's a dotted line. This is just a representation of the road that will take you from the end of Colonial up to the top of the landfill, which is where the park will be located. So everything in green after 10 years' time gets dedicated back to the town. Everything you see in red stays with the property owner. So we're responsible for the maintenance of all of that. It's the side slopes that will be on either side of Colonial Street, as well as winding around the landfill and the private driveway that takes people back to the roast. So at the top of the landfill, is on top of Land Bay 2, is where Dumfries Vista Park will be located. This is an area that you see with the red dashed line. This is about a 7-acre facility on top of the landfill, which will be built to accommodate various activities as dictated by some design charrettes that were held in late 2021. Many of you probably attended. There were video sessions that were happening, and the idea at the time and as proffered was to solicit public input to understand what people wanted to have at the park. We had a limited amount of space that we could work with, but on the 7 acres, you can see it's pretty full and it's chock full of amenities that will be available to those going to the park. I'll point you to the legend to the right. You can see that there will be a dog park. There's a tot lot or a playground area where there will be various pieces of playground equipment, which is on the next slide. The majority of the space in the middle will be available to be striped as athletic playing fields. So you can see in solid white lines, those are 2 youth soccer fields if you rotated them left to right, or if you wanted to stripe it for 1 soccer field, it can be a regulation soccer field, basically taking up that entire space. There's a gravel parking lot that can accommodate 95 parking spaces. And then in between the parking lot, on the other side of the parking lot, area number 7, that's a picnic area. There's a phenomenal view when you get on top of the landfill looking around. So we see a lot of people going up there, no grilling because it's on top of the landfill. But if you took a picnic up there, you could have a seat and enjoy some fresh air. So the road leading up to the top, kind of with the dashed yellow line, that's from the end of Colonial Street. There will be a road that kind of winds around and goes up to the top, as well as a road that extends from that road and goes down to the water tower to maintain that property, which is not owned by the town or by us. So you can see it has various amenities. It is on top of a landfill. We did have to work within restrictions of being on top of a landfill. It's being closed right now, again, anticipated to be closed by this summer, but we are putting down a liner on top of all of the former trash. On top of that liner is about 2 feet of dirt, and then grass grows on top of that to stabilize the ground. We worked with DEQ to try to make sure that we can get as many amenities as we could on top of this. Normally, if you see landfills developed with parks on top, that happens after the landfill is closed and after they've completed post-closure care. The fact that we're doing this before it's even been closed has taken a lot of coordination with DEQ, and they have approved everything that we've done, but there were limitations and we couldn't go beyond what you see here. So this is an overview of what will occupy the 7-acre park on top of the landfill. This next slide, this is a dimensional representation of the soccer field. It's a full-size field, so just to give you, it's 110 yards going one way and 75 yards the other direction. It basically occupies all the space between the parking lot and the side slope that starts to go down. So there's not a lot of space for anything else. If it's not striped, it could be a grass field that you could throw a Frisbee or do other things on, but it just represents that there's enough space here to play soccer. The next slide just shows you some of the equipment that you'll see on top of the playground equipment. We'll have a swing set, various climbing and sliding domes, some musical equipment, several pieces of ADA accessible equipment, including the swing set and a climbing dome, as well as the music equipment. The bottom left image shows you a restroom facility. This is one of the things we heard. We needed to have a restroom on top of the park. We couldn't put a water line, we couldn't put a sewer line on top of the landfill after talking to DEQ, but after working with the town, found a solution where there is a restroom. It's got walls, it has solar power, men's and women's facilities, has running water because it stores water, but it also has a cistern to hold the waste. So we're responsible in the MOU to service this restroom, to clean the restroom. But people that are going to the park will have a restroom to use. So we were very excited to be able to include that on the park layout as well. Just a few other updates on where we are with the property. We have a general manager for the Rose, Bobby Sample, is here tonight. We are in the process of hiring 400 positions, and this number was actually before the amendment that you're being reviewed tonight. There are additional jobs, over 40 additional jobs that we anticipate with the additional gain as part of the phase 1 development. There's 12 total senior leadership positions. We have 7 already onboarded, another 75 supervisory positions that we're in the process of recruiting for, and 44 tip positions using a tip credit. Additionally, as I highlighted before, we're very excited that the positions will all receive a $15 per hour minimum, or not a minimum wage, a $15 hour wage for all non-tip positions at opening. Recruitment is underway. We're opening later this year, so we are out there trying to fill these jobs, working to hold various job fairs, working especially on the culinary side with the restaurants and the concepts that we have, working with local culinary schools to hire the various positions. We're in the current process of recruiting and interviewing for an executive chef position. Some of the positions that will start sooner rather than later include our security and surveillance teams as we start to get the property ready to open to guests. And all of these positions will be hired at least 1 month prior to the grand opening. And with that, that concludes our presentation. It's been great to work with staff and obviously council on these amendments and these various agreements, but we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for that presentation. I'm gonna just go down the line. Councilman Fields? Okay, Councilman Pete, you have anything? Okay, Chair Pro Tem.
I'll wait till after.
Okay, Vice
Yeah,
Mayor.
I guess we'll wait till after citizen comments.
All right, so, all right, seeing no comments right now, I'm gonna open up the public hearing. You can have your seat.
Thank you very
All
much.
right. All right. Our clerk has a sign-in sheet. Hopefully everybody had the opportunity to sign in. We give you 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name when I call you and your address for the record. We'll get 3 minutes. There's a timer up. Just watch the timer because we will stop you when it's your time to up. This is not a question and answer period. This is a public hearing. We're here to hear public comment and public feedback. All right. So first up, Miss Margie Oden.
Good evening. The dais. I'm excited about the Rose. I'm super excited and I'll be happy to see it open this year. And I live in the surrounding area. I've been watching the development on the Rose. And I'm very much in favor of the Rose. And I like what I see, and I hope that we will amend to include the other amenities with all the businesses that's going up and the Rose. Let's do the right thing by the community, include the community center, and all the other amenities. And I'm happy to see it, and hopefully I'll get a date when it's gonna be open, because it's gonna be the first one there. Thank you.
All right, thank you. C. Cornell.
Good evening. As an adjacent landowner, we only received in the mail last Thursday notifying us about the planning meeting and this meeting. So that question, I suppose, would be one addressed to the town mayor as far as the time one would provide notification. I was under the assumption it was 14 days. So again, that question I think would have to be something addressed to the town mayor. As a person who was born and raised here, I was always under the impression that the town meetings, one would speak and that the town would communicate back with the resident. So that is something that I'm having to adjust to. So bear with me because I think things on that end have changed. Going back to being adjacent owner on Colonial Street and being the only residential home left on that street, I voiced my opinions early on and again last night in that the things that we were told have not been what we have been seeing or what has been dealt with us. I mentioned the methane gas coming off that was cited by the DEQ, and we were not notified about that. And so I have another question that would be directed for Churchill Downs as far as where is that gas being pulled and released into the air? What is the highest point that that gas will be released on that site plan? Is it in the green zone? Is it next to the hotel? Or is it another item that's right next to our family home? So that's a concern. As I stated before, my concern is what they're now coming and telling you. How do we know that this is actually going to come to fruition, that it will indeed happen? Do you have a real, true, solid agreement, legal agreement that this will happen? Because as I also shared with the town, we were lowballed, less than what our property
ma'am.
assessment is.
Good time.
Thank you.
Mr. Bob Sweeney.
Thank you, Mayor and Honorable Dias. My name is Bob Sweeney. I live at 8960 Center Street in Old Town Manassas. I'm also the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. This chamber is the strongest voice for the business community in the county. Together with our diverse membership representing over 100,000 employees, We work to create an environment where business and people thrive. To accomplish this, we focus on our efforts in key business areas of business growth, economic development, advocacy, education, and community outreach. The Chamber of Commerce today endorses a yes vote on the Proffers adjustment at the Rose. The Rose is owned by the iconic horse racing company Churchill Downs. It needs a little bit more time to open the community space. It'll open just as fast as God lets it by growing the proper amount of grass that the DEQ requires. In exchange, Churchill Downs has said that they will provide the much needed funding up to $2 million for the Clyde Washington Community Center. This is a critical infrastructure need in this town. It's a hub of the community. Churchill Downs will also pay for the unrealized taxes for the delayed opening, over $3 million, $3.6 million, I believe I saw, plus another $400,000 for any further delays after July. None of this is required by Churchill Downs right now. Most importantly, and beyond the enormous amount of money Churchill Downs is proposing here, we will get a guarantee that phase 2 gets built. Whereas if you vote no, it will remain up to the discretion of Churchill Downs. The Rose directly supports the state's growing horse racing industry and the return of horse racing at Colonial Downs racetrack. Since opening in Virginia just 5 years ago, Rosie's and Colonial Downs have invested more than $400 million in the Commonwealth, created over 1,200 new jobs, and now contributes $54 million per year in state and local tax revenue. In all, it is estimated that the Rose will generate over $6 million annually in new tax revenues for the town of Dumfries, while creating, as you saw, over 400 new jobs. As I've said a few times now, we are honored to have Churchill Downs located in Dumfries, and we are very proud of the work you have done as the elected body that has been in charge of brokering this relationship. You have been both incredible community partners here because of you, there will be millions of dollars pumped into the town while creating hundreds of great jobs and bringing a lot of fun to the East End. Thank you.
Ms. Gwen Washington. The Honorable.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, and staff. I'm going to make this as quick as I can. First of all, let me say that I am in favor of the Rose. I think that it's wonderful that it's coming to our little town of Dumfries. However, I do have some concerns. And those concerns, rather than being taken away tonight, they were increased. One of my concerns is the big thing that a lot of the citizens were excited about, in addition to the casino, was the fact that we were going to have meeting rooms and we were going to have event centers so that we could start having some of our fundraising activities here in the town of Dumfries, not only for the Dumfries citizens, but also for Prince William County in general. But unless we get something very firm, a very firm date put in, then I'm not sure that's going to occur. And then it also tonight, in what was stated when we're talking about the event center and its completion, before it can be completed, that there will have to be a traffic study. That concerns me, because if we are going to allow more machines to be put into the Rose, that's going to mean more traffic, which means that when we get ready to study the traffic before we can begin phase 2, that could very well mean that there's going to be too much traffic to put in the meeting rooms and the conference center. And that is something that I think that we really need. Basically, that's it. I want to see us have a firm date. I'm not sure whether we have a firm date yet. We need a firm date. Then we need to back up after what was said tonight about this traffic study and whether or not we need to approve putting in more machines, because more machines definitely means more traffic. And so those are the things that I think that we need to look at. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Honorable Cliff Brewer.
About that honorable.
Well, I came here tonight. I usually don't come to these meetings anymore. But I came here tonight because if you had your attorney, your town manager, the planning commission looking at this, and they give this green or the green light on this thing, something's wrong, something bad wrong. Because on page 1, it says a payment to the town in the amount of $3,600,000 within 10 days after the final approval of the town council and the town proper amendment. All right, they're gonna give you money if you approve it. Sounds like it's extortion to me. Then, do you know how the landfill got up on the hill? Exactly by the same way these guys are manipulating this proper agreement. Exactly the same thing. I know because I live here. Matter of fact, I live in back of the landfill. I listen to them every morning, starting their machines up at 6 a.m., waking me up, waking my dog up, dump trucks up there, beating their beds down, setting off car alarms in the neighborhood. They're not good neighbors. Just to let the town know. I live there. I know. I hear it every morning. You can say all the pretty things you want to about the amenities, all that stuff. That's fine, well, and good. You don't live there. I do. Let's see. Few other things. You're going to be giving your rights away as far as approval. And I found that in this document here. It says the town agrees in the event that all life safety measures with respect to a particular phase of this project have been completed, but certain administrative items remain outstanding, the town shall work with Colonial Downs to issue a temporary certificate of occupancy with respect to such. That means, in case you don't know, you sign this agreement. If they don't finish a particular part of that and they ask you for a certificate of occupancy, you have to give it to them. I don't know how long you guys have pondered over this thing because it didn't take me 10 minutes to find this stuff. Proper 4A2 provides that Colonial Downs will construct and open the park concurrently with the gaming facility as defined in the proffers and provide that all permits relative to the closure and capping of the landfill occur.
All right.
I have one question to the town. Have they?
Thank you. You have to get your question later.
That's fine.
All right.
I just have one question for this town council. Have they completed the
Was there anybody else who came in and didn't get to sign up? If you wanted to speak, please line up at the podium now. All right. If you came in and didn't get to sign up and wanted to speak, line up at the podium now. Okay. Seeing none at this time, I will close the public hearing. Oh, was he coming in? I didn't see him. Okay. Sorry about that. Madam Attorney, did I close it or did he have his hand up? Okay, the same. Okay, go ahead. You were moving at the same time. I'm sorry. The floor is yours. State your name and everything for the record.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Willie Tony, former member of the council, former member of the Planning Commission, former member of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Wherein I thought that this venture with the Roses Gaming folks was a positive one for the town overall. There are some matters that, in my opinion, do need be looked a little closer. I'm hearing comments made that you want to open up the park at the same time that you open up the gaming facilities. And if memory serves me correct, I heard the term post-closure period. If memory serves me correct, DEQ requires quite a protracted period for that post-closure, for that land to be declared usable by human beings, if I remember correctly. It was quite a while ago when we dealt with the same issue while I was on the but again, I think this is a good overall venture, overall partnership, but there's just some little small things. As my colleague, Mrs. Washington, alluded to, when you start cutting back on certain things, and they don't materialize in the way they was initially presented. So I have a little caution, I have a little concern there. Now, the pluses being, yeah, we could definitely use the money for the recreation and creation of an apartment. Most of you know that I've been a champion for programs for children ever since my stay in this town. So I definitely support that. But again, I would caution you to look at some of the other little amenities that are being eroded, if I might use that word. And I do hear what Mr. Washington is saying regarding this traffic study, because I don't know if any members of GEQ are present in this room, but they could definitely share some light on what is required, the period that is required. They have to test that land several times a year. Again, it's a protracted period, several years. So if you're saying you want to open this at the same time you open the park, I don't see the two being cohesive. I don't see it being feasible from where I sit, But again, and let me reiterate, give us the money, let us get the stuff going, and get everything else going. But again, we would benefit, this entire county would benefit from
Thank you, sir.
amenities. Thank you for your time.
All right. At this time, I now officially close this public hearing and now go to council comments, questions. All right. Vice Mayor, did you have something?
Oh, so,
Yeah.
thank you.
Push this so we can.
Thank you. Let me get them in order because I've been writing notes on all sorts of pages here. I have a couple of questions. Can I have the applicant please come to the podium? Thank you. So, as you heard, we have several members of the community who have several questions. And as we are not allowed to respond to our community when they ask questions, I've seen you all taking notes. Would you be so kind as to address some of the concerns that you've heard from our community?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
And if I missed something, please let me know. First, there were some comments around methane gas being emitted from the landfill. We are not aware of any methane gas concerns with the landfill. In fact, it was a construction debris landfill, which is actually benefits in that there is less methane gas emitted from the landfill. One note I will make, when we purchased the property and started the development, there was already a closure plan for the landfill. And when you put a liner on top of the landfill, there was a passive gas venting system already designed. So what that means is methane that does build up under the liner had a passive way. It was going to find the path of least resistance and just go out various, tubes that would come up at the top of the landfill. They're kind of a candy cane shaped, and the gas would come out and just be naturally emitted. When we stepped in, we looked at that, we worked with various consultants, and we made the decision to invest in an active methane gas reduction system. So what that does, we installed gas trenches along the base of the landfill, and there is equipment that will pull and extract gas out. So it will help pull gas out, filter it, clean it, and make sure that we don't have any methane gas emissions. We don't have the history to tell us that we would, but we have made the extra step, the extra investment to ensure that we don't. The people that are coming to the park, people that are coming to the resort, don't have to worry about anything. So that was one step that we took. Another note, there was some concern about the amount of meeting rooms in the event center. Yes, there is less space being attributed to that as part of this phase one change, but there is still space, the 3,300 square feet that I mentioned for events and for meetings to be held at the Rose. We also foresee that the community center could have some space to accommodate various events that might be needed as part of this. So we see those two things going hand in hand as part of the amended proper discussion. Concerns about traffic, something especially when you go to Planning Commission, you talk about development, traffic is always talked about. A traffic study was done prior to the proffer being approved the first time, and that traffic study contemplated the full phase two development. That's why there's enough parking to accommodate all of the games, all of the event center, all of the amenities. It also contemplated that another study had to be done prior to phase two, mainly for the purpose of determining if a southbound deceleration right turn lane was going to be needed coming from Main Street, turning right into Colonial Street. So that was really the only concern. That's the main thing that we'll be looking at as part of the study. Everything else was contemplated with the full phase development, that there were going to be all of those cars coming at one time. So it was contemplated with phase one. The TIA, the traffic impact analysis done the first time, did consider all of those additional vehicles. There was concern about the temporary certificate of occupancy language that we talked about, and then it's in part of the LOI with the town. That language is mainly there to make sure that working with the town, we can open as quickly as possible. There are various things required to get a full certificate of occupancy. And when a town and jurisdictions that we've worked with before, when they issue a TCO, that has a time commitment. You still have time where you have to complete various items. So those items, we're not asking for relief from life safety. We will not open unless our facility is safe to guests. But if there are checklist or punch list items that need to be complete, we can do those after people are in the facility. So that would happen after the TCO, prior to a certificate of occupancy. That CO is still would be held that we still have to complete. Comments about opening the park. So the landfill will be closed this summer. That's when we're anticipating to close it. After it's closed, you go into the post-closure care period. Once it's closed, people can still go up on the park. DEQ has told us we can occupy the park. The post-closure care period is a period of time that we as the owner are responsible for measuring and monitoring various things, from leachate emissions to gas to all the things that DEQ wants to understand that we're monitoring and tracking during the post-closure care period. There's not a concern of people occupying the space itself. The main concern is developing on top of the space, which once the post-closure care period concludes, that's when additional developments, and you see some other parks being built on top of landfills. Those are traditionally done after the post-closure care period, but we've worked with DEQ to make sure we could get our park safely built prior to that period ending. So I believe those are the various notes and comments that I took. Happy to address any other questions that you might have for me.
Thank you for addressing those. The questions that I had coming into the meeting, I'm going through the amended proffers, and a couple of questions that stuck out to me was, as I looked through the presentation that you all provided, on page, I found something that was a little contradictory. On the page you talked about the green space. Allow me to get to it, please. You mentioned that there was no change to the public access or public accessible green space. However, in the proffer changes, there is a change to the green space. And I wanted to know, is there something wrong with the presentation, or is there something wrong with the changes to the proffer? So on page 19, it says the total amount of green space and the size of the publicly accessible park are not changing as part of the agreement. However, on page 2, it says, and approximately it changed from 80 to 62.5 acre open space, including a public park. So it changed from 80 to 62.5. So there was a change, or am I misunderstanding what I'm reading?
So that was the language. It's a good question, and it is quite confusing. That's the language I was trying to clarify with the distinction between the land base. So this contemplated the 80 acres of green space, including a public park. There will still be 80 acres of green space, but we are defining here Land Bay 2, because further down in the proffer, it says that Land Bay 2 is going to be dedicated to the town after the post-closure care period, or 10 years. So this is really intended to to define that. The land that we'll maintain is still green space. It's not going to not be green space. The publicly accessible space was always the park on top of the landfill. We're still working within the constraints that we have, to have the park on top of the landfill. DEQ will not let people occupy the slopes of the landfill, so we can't change that. But the other items, it was more of a cleanup item, and that's what I was kind of trying to explain.
Okay, thank you. So another question that I had is, as we move to page 3 of the proper amendments, phase 2, section B, phase 2, it talks about, and this is totally confusing to me, so I need some help deciphering what I'm reading here. Provided it has constructed each of the project components in phase 1 and the conditions described in either proffer, what now says 8C2, yada, yada, yada. It goes on. When we get to letter C, the theater events center, provided there are enough parking spaces to park the remaining uses in accordance with the rates shown on either MZP or in supplementary parking analysis approved by the town. And then the parenthetical says phase 2. If the number of parking spaces haven't changed, then I'm trying to understand what constitutes the provision here.
So section C, we are not proposing to change. That's per the original proffer. And I guess, is that your question about C?
Yes.
Okay, so in the MZP, there is a sheet that tallies up the various amenities of the resort once fully constructed. So 1,800 games times 1 parking space per game. And then you take the number of hotel rooms times 1.1 parking spaces per hotel room. And that gets you to a total number of parking spaces required per zoning requirement. And that total approximately 2,600, I believe. When the proffer was approved, there was a shared parking study provided that shows that when you have properties with multiple uses, you don't have to go by the strict number of parking spaces per each amenity, because some people are coming to play a machine and also stay in a hotel room. So you can actually reduce that number. The MZP requires 2,541 parking spaces. What this is saying is that if the amenities or the program of phase 2 changes, it still has to work within that total number of parking spaces that are already built. So again, not a change to C. When we go to build phase 2, we will just have to work with the town to reference that parking tally and make sure that everything fits within it.
Okay. Okay. And as far as the traffic study. So I heard you say that you are committing to a traffic study. I know that you all are not able to commit at this moment to an opening date, but you are committing to a traffic study within 6 months. So that gives us what? January, 6 months from when? 6 months from the opening. So we're looking at January. Do you have a date?
The traffic study contemplates taking into account traffic for the park. So the language for the traffic study would happen within 6 months of the park opening. So
Okay.
we're using our best efforts to open the park. Once that happens, we would complete the traffic study, because as the original proffer was written, it needed to account for the traffic to the park as well.
So what confuses me about the timing of the traffic study is that the traffic study would be based on the amount of machines that are in there. But if there's a concern about the traffic impact when there are events there, then how accurate would the traffic study be if it's not taken into effect or into account what the traffic looks like when we have a large event there? How does that work?
So traffic engineers, when they put together a traffic impact analysis, they have a manual where they look at the size of what you're developing, and they have projected ratios where they're looking at other properties that exist with similar sizes. So the traffic impact analysis that was presented when the original proffer was signed, that's how they did it. They looked at the number of amenities, how many there were, and what the anticipated traffic would be. So they would take the existing information, combine that with projected from what is being proposed, and then that would produce the study that the team would review.
So the traffic study is future forecasting?
The new one would be a combination of actual information and future forecasting.
Okay. Those are all my questions for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to get some things clarified. I know that we're waiting on DEQ. We have to be in compliance with that. Is
the only issue that we're having that the grass will not grow? If not, what are the other challenges you're facing that's
Sure.
preventing that development from happening?
And just to clarify, that's not an issue. That's just I don't say a concern, but we want to make sure that there's enough grass because there needs to be sufficient soil stabilization for DEQ to say that it's closed. Outside of that, there are no concerns. Our team is working feverishly, as we heard this evening, to make sure that we close it as quickly as possible. They have completed several sides of the landfill closure. If you were driving down Main Street and you look up the hill, you will see grass starting to grow. Along the sides of the slopes, you see what are called diversion berms. So it's not one steady slope of the side of a landfill, but there are various ridges which capture the water as it starts to come down and then diverts that water into pipes which carry it down to the basin. So they are complete on several sides. There's about 40% of the liner still to go down, but it's weather dependent. But we anticipate that all of that work will be complete and grass will be growing in time for us to fully close it this summer.
Okay, so just clarify for me. So if the grass growing is not an issue, is the holdup the traffic study, or is it, so if there's nothing holding up theoretically, why are we not starting now? If it's not the traffic, if it's not DEQ, if it's just grass and you're saying grass is growing,
So
what has prevented that?
So the DEQ will make the final determination if there is sufficient grass on top of the landfill.
So it is the grass.
That's yes.
Okay, so it's just, that's all we're worried about is grass now, is the thing. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, also, I noticed in the presentation that the money going towards the community center, it was earmarked, it did say design, but I know that the MOU struck that out. I just want to clarify that the $2 million is for the development of the community center and it's not limited to design.
That's correct. It is a $2 million donation to be used towards the community center.
Okay, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Councilman Brown. Yes.
I thank you, City Chief, for coming with your presentation. So I have some concerns, and it's not about what are you doing for the town, because you're doing a lot for the town, and I really appreciate that. However, some of the concerns that the citizens raise, I have those concerns myself. We've been in a position where we had builders come in and promise second phase, third phase, they never came. So that's at the top of my mind right now. When any builder, not just you, any builder come into this town and promises this council in this town amenities or whatever, and they don't follow through. Fool me one time, bad on me. You're not gonna fool me 2 times. That's it. So I'm very careful about how things are written. And as I'm looking in the proffers, they're not written in a manner that I would accept if it was a personal contract to me. Fortunately, we have a democracy, and I'm one vote. We had negotiation, and this has just been transparent. We had a negotiation. We all, I think the majority voted for moving forward. However, the concern's still there. We're talking about supporting the community. If it wasn't for that park, Councilman Brown wouldn't even voted for this, didn't even come in here. Looking at the MOU with the park, we have 1 restroom, 1 for male and 1 for female. During the negotiation, I asked, could that be changed? And it was a hard no. We have kids on the park, customers come, just like you're saying, when they come, they can't play, they might not come back again. So we host a soccer tournament on top of that park, and we have 2 restrooms. And you have 60, 70 kids and parents. 1 restroom is not gonna work. And I don't see anything in the MOU that suggests that there's any provisions for that. Second piece is about when the park is gonna open. I understand. I was in the same scenario in buying my home here in Dumfries. The grass not grown, they can't give you occupancy. I understand that. However, I don't know, and I don't know if you have reported to the town, the priority you have on that park. We're right now thinking that the park was supposed to open when the casino opened, and with this particular property, you're saying, I can't tell you when it's gonna open because it's all dependent on DEQ. We knew that going into this. We knew DEQ had to make the final decision going into this. So now that we are now gonna perhaps allow you to open the casino and not having a date on the park, that's a problem. Concern for me and some other citizens. The second piece is phase 2, the convention center. I hear that we still will have conference spaces, but 3,300 square feet, that is a basement. I can host that in my home. So that is not what I intended a conference center would be. And coming in phase 2, which we don't know when that's going to happen, even after the traffic study, it could constrict the size of that convention, and we don't know any of that right now. So those are concerning to me and some of the citizens that I've spoke with about what are we leaving on the table that we've requested prior to bringing you in here, and what may not happen. This is not about me getting reelected. I can care less about that, but I do care about the children in the community. And if we're not providing what we said to the community, that's bad on us as a council. So since there's no guarantees in there, I have questions. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Councilman Pete?
First of all, I want to thank you guys for the presentation this evening. I do want to highlight the fact of, originally bringing this to the table of what was initiated in the beginning from, what was that, Colonial Downs, that I was very dissatisfied with what the town was receiving at that time. Now, since being here, bringing this to the table, we've gotten a new town manager, which our old town manager couldn't get this done. It was just wrong time. It was a hard no on that. But with this new town manager, I really want a town manager. I want to highlight the fact that I am definitely appreciative and proud of the fact that you were able to bring Churchill Downs back to the table for the renegotiation for revenue for this town. Let's start there. I do want to commend and thank your staff for putting in hard work for the last several months to getting these guys back to the table for us to be in a position to make this happen. Thank you very much for that. Now, as I lead into my questions, my first question as I live off of Tripoli Boulevard, as well as Mr. Brewer here, I am concerned about this sound barrier wall that's in the back. I have several residents that talk to me about this sound barrier wall in the back. I see nothing about a sound barrier wall. I see that we're capping off 12 to 15 feet, and that's it. I would like to know if you can share with me or share with everyone what is going on both sides of this sound barrier wall. I have residents and citizens living on my particular street of Tripoli that have concerns about this sound barrier wall, which I do take respect of you living there. And if I live there, I will have those same types of concerns. If you can elaborate on me on this wall that we're talking about, this sound barrier wall that we're talking about, because I have to take this to my favorable residents on Tripoli Boulevard, and I am definitely concerned about their livelihood. So can you elaborate on that for my citizens, please?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So there will be a sound wall adjoining right next to the entry private driveway that leads you to the rows once you make the turn and go around. Before the sound wall is there, we have to build one of the retaining walls that I was mentioning as part of our delay. So there is a retaining wall which will rise to various heights, which will support the road.
What is various heights? I don't like the wordplay that I see a lot in up to various. Talk to me.
So it will rise from anywhere from ground level up to 20 feet in various points. So because it's an uphill drive, leading you into the parking garage. It starts low and then builds up as you drive up towards the parking garage.
So as we getting closer towards the adult entertainment side, that wall would be higher.
The retaining wall supporting the road will be at the same height. So if you were driving on it, you won't see the retaining wall because it's underneath the road, holding up the road. On top of the road is the sound wall, which keeps the noise from the cars on our side of the property. So if you were in a car and you were looking to the right as you drive up that road, there would be a solid sound wall, much like you see on an interstate in various locations.
Does that include, and now speaking to the retaining wall and the sound wall, does that include a sidewalk on the side of that?
Yes.
Now I have the retaining wall, the sound wall. Now my part two of that question is, my citizens are on this side, right? What do we have right there? Is that just what do we have? Is that vegetation area or do we have a sidewalk on the other side? What do we have here?
The sidewalk will be on our property side of the sound wall. So if people are walking on the sidewalk, people that are in the residences would not see people walking. The sound wall will block that traffic. On the residence side of the retaining wall and the sound wall will just be green space. That's part of the green space that I was mentioning as part of the shift in the land base. So it will just be green, grass, trees, a lot of what's there today, but we're also adding additional landscaping as part of the landscape plan that we are required to submit.
Are there lights provided along the sideway headed leading up to the entertainment center?
Yes.
Okay, so we have the sidewalk, the lights, a little bit of green space, maybe. You didn't say it, but I'm
Yes.
project. Okay.
Yes.
And then we have a sound wall that would be about 20 feet once we get to where we at.
I don't recall the actual height, but I do know the wall has been submitted to.
You guys do not know the actual height of what you're proposing?
I don't know it sitting here today.
Do anyone from the team know the height of this wall? I have concerns about this sound wall.
I'd be happy to, I can find it out, but I don't think anybody here today would have the height of it. It has been submitted, I believe, to the town staff, so we might have information we can pull up and look at.
Okay, because I'm hearing 20 to 15 to 20 feet, but I am definitely concerned about this sound wall. Okay. If we can get that language back to the council to share with us, please. Thank you. My next question here is, we speaking on the MOU agreement, we have that the maintenance responsibilities that you guys will, and I'm kind of, as I read it, as I read through the package, I don't see, do you guys stop when we take over in 10, or do you guys continue the maintenance of the park? Talk to me.
So after the property is dedicated to the town, we are no longer responsible for maintenance. So that's not a change as part of the amendment. That was a condition of the original.
Okay. All right, we went over the traffic studies. And so this traffic study will begin the second traffic study, because we have the first one. Do we have this, do the town have this traffic study that you guys are speaking of? We're all talking about a traffic study. Do we have this traffic study? And then will we be able to get an update on the second traffic study?
So you should have the first one as part of the MZP process when the proper was approved. The second one you will certainly have after we conduct it, because it will need to be presented to the town for review. So you will definitely have that one as well.
Okay, with my next question here. With the hotels rooms in mind, the additional rooms in mind, we were projected in the first proposal at 305. We're down now to 105, and we're looking for you guys are proposing to look for studies for the additional rooms. As I went through on a tour up there, not too a couple months ago, not that long ago, I was clueless to will there be an additional hotel, or how would you guys add, if need be, these extra rooms because I see the structure of the building already up, so I'm concerned of like where are they gonna put these extra rooms if need be?
Yes, there is a space for an additional hotel tower that would be connected to the first one. And that was contemplated in the initial MZP that was submitted when the proffer was approved. So the new hotel tower to accommodate the additional rooms would sit right next to the current one. And then right next to that is where the event center will go. So if you went out there today, you would see land between the property and 95 that is currently undeveloped. That's where that will go.
Okay, I did see that because I was kind of curious, where are they gonna put these?
There's not much, but there's enough to accommodate the phase 2 space.
Okay, all right, so, and that's on part of the what's the name there? Moving to my next question. Will there be indoor and outdoor entertainment?
I think the whole property will provide entertainment. So specifically any type of entertainment, the gaming machines themselves are a form of entertainment.
The question that was brought to me was, they hearing a lot of the indoor entertainment, everything's indoor, and the question was, will there be? If no, then it's no. Will there be any outdoor entertainment included?
There is not outdoor entertainment space as part of the development.
Okay. Thank you for that. Moving on to my next question. With the scenic views that you guys have are in place, installing and on the park side there, there is a request from a few citizens that have history in this town, been here way before, long before I have, and they said it's a beautiful sight up there, and you can see Potomac River. I don't know this. So I'm asking as far as your, when you do develop these scenic views and sites, can you include the Potomac River scenic views if possible? And I'm also hearing that Quantico can be seen from up there also. I don't know these things, but I believe these citizens that have brought this to my attention would like to be able to enjoy that scenical space once you guys install it.
No, there are some great views at 360 degrees looking all the way around. As part of our plans, I showed the picnic area or the area where you can sit down. We also have plans to include a sign. What is included on that sign is still to be determined, and we are very much looking forward to working with the town to highlight what we want to put on there. But we have the ability to talk about history and to include various elements that people that go up there and sit and want to learn about the area. We have a sign to be able to display that information.
Okay. My next question is this park here, right? With this park, our initial, what was brought to us initially in the beginning was 3 parks, possibly 4, but it was a strong 3 at that time, possibly 4. We're down to 2. 2 can only bring us 75 feet in length of the long way, 115. Is there any room for a football field there?
So you have 110 yards by 75 yards.
Correct.
So it will be a grass field, and with striping, you can configure that for soccer or football. But there is enough space for one of those after you look at all the other amenities that are up there.
Okay, that leads me to I got those details. That leads me to my next question there. I hear the language that we can't dig in the ground. I have a strong question here. You said you guys are saying y'all using the same similar bathroom that we're using in Ginn Memorial Park here. We went feet in the ground there. How are you guys about to install this restroom here if we can't go into the ground?
So the restroom itself sits on a concrete pad above the 2 feet of dirt that's on top of the liner. And then we build up a ramp to be able to access inside that facility. So there's no water lines, there's not a sewer line connected to it. The cistern or the holding tank is underneath that restroom, the same one you have in the other park. But that whole structure is sitting on top of the 2 feet of dirt that covers the liner. So we presented that plan to DEQ and they approved it as we presented.
How would that water be reused? Is that reusable water, correct?
it's regular water. It's not potable water, but then after it's used, it goes into a tank. So we're responsible for the MOU to have a truck go up there and pump out the waste. Yes.
Okay, okay, thank you. Okay. With the park, I'm hearing about the parking lot that's gonna be on the park side of this resort. It hasn't been officially given a name. It's just called the park, right? So, I had a concern of how many parking spaces will be at that park. I don't hear this number, nor do I see it in any language.
There are 95 parking spaces.
All righty. I believe that is all the questions that I have for this evening. Again, I want to thank you all for this presentation. Again, Town Manager, thank you much, you and your staff. And I am excited to be able to be a part of this and leading the way to bring you guys back here so we can put this town in a better position. I don't like the town being lowballed at all, right? But I felt a little that the town was being lowballed with that first proposal in the beginning. But I do like the position that we can be moving in now. And I definitely like the fact that you guys are willing to support my baby, the recreational center, the Clyde Washington Community and Recreational Center. I'm definitely looking forward to getting this open for the seniors, the children here, and to see if we can get the activities out of here because my children they definitely need it. It's a necessity. So again, thank you all. And Mayor, from that point, I yield.
Councilwoman Peterson.
If I may, real quick, Councilman Pete, just to let you know, the sound wall varies in height from 10 to 13 feet above road grade.
10 to 13 feet.
Yes.
All right. This opens me back up.
All right. Councilwoman.
There was I had two citizens in concern about this 13 feet. And this is the sound wall, right?
Yes.
Is there any room for us to move that? It hasn't been built yet or developed. Is there any room? Is there any room for us to build that a little higher than 13 feet?
At this point, there's not. The retaining wall structure that supports it is already being designed and installed. So if you make a wall taller, you would have to change all of the understructure to support that. So where we are today, the sound wall would be 10 to 13 feet. But the sound wall was designed based on a noise study that determined what the volume of or what the noise levels would be. So
Have that noise study
yes,
here?
I don't have it here. No, I know it's been submitted, but we do have a noise study.
I have concerns about this, right? With this wall, bringing that you brought it back up. I definitely have concerns about this noise at the back of my residence household off of Tripoli. If there's any, as you said, it's being developed already. Okay. All right. Thank you for the information, sir.
Thank you.
Mayor, I yield.
Councilwoman Peterson.
I just want to say thank you for your presentation, and I have no questions or concerns.
Councilman Fields.
Good evening. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. I have no questions. Plenty of comments, but no questions. Earlier, I messaged to my colleague right beside me. I believe they made a good offer. We win either way. I'll say that again. They made a good offer. We win either way. And what I mean by that is we have been delayed. Mistakes may have been made. Unforeseen things may have happened. But they happen. As the old saying goes, it happens. You can put whatever a couple of letters in front of it you want to. It happens. But we have to realize that's life. Things happen. But some just want to come and point the finger and say, aha, I told you so, or I got you, or we got you. And again, maybe I told you so. Maybe you did tell us so. But we also have to realize that, okay, they're telling us so now. They're telling us what they're going to do to compensate us for any type of delay as we go forward. A lot of people are talking about traffic. We live in Northern Virginia. It's traffic. When a major accident happens on 95, what happens right here on Main Street? Traffic. We can't get around traffic in Northern Virginia. However, I do believe that the vast majority of the people that are going to visit this place, they got jobs. So they in traffic during rush hour times, in the morning and in the evening. The study that was done for the current roses that we have, most people come out and gamble or visit our facility later in the evening, 8, 9 o'clock plus to 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I think rush hour traffic is over by that time. So your traffic woes, of course, the grand opening is going to be some traffic. Let's just hope it's on the weekend. And let's just hope that there's nothing catastrophic that's going to happen on 95. Because there again, we're where? In Northern Virginia. There's always traffic. When it rains, it pours. When it snows, it's horrible. When it's icy, we can't drive in it. So it's going to be traffic. Thank goodness it's going to open in the summertime. Another concern was the bathrooms. Okay. Look at most of your parks around here now. How many bathrooms do you see at these parks? Or there's the option for portables and really nice trailer-sized portables if we happen to have a big event. So keep that in mind. There were some to also come and bring up different concerns. The concerns, I believe, have been answered. And if you're still unclear, they will be answered. And I believe that, again, like I told my colleague earlier, we have a win either way. We're going to have the amount of money to really make our Clyde Washington Center, community center, much nicer, much nicer. And as we go forward, it'll be much nicer. So I hope that you're not just coming to hear what you want to hear and to point the finger where you want to point the finger. Come in with an open mind, open ears. And as I said before, when you point one finger, look how many is pointed back at you. Because some here, even though they want to complain, you initially voted for this thing. And now we have it. And we're making adjustments as we go forward. Thank you.
All right, my comments will be a little brief. We have, I want to thank staff for who put the package together. One, they gave us the original proffer agreement and the track changes were in there. So thank you. That was very helpful to see what we originally voted for and what we have before us. So you can see what was in the original proffer and what we're looking at today. We also have a LOI and we also have an MOU in front of us. So we got 3 different documents. As I deliberated on the proposed amendments and these proffer conditions associated with this Rose mixed-use development, I think it's imperative to put some stuff into context so that the broader context of what the town's future is and the trajectory that we're on. Council last year did a strategic planning session and we collectively came up with a solid vision and a mission statement for this town going forward. And it's 3 components: well-managed government, a community that's active and engaged. Thank y'all for all of the comments and your engagement here, the calls, the emails. And the third part of that is we said a thriving downtown community. It's a part of our collective vision and trajectory. As we embark now this year, we've started and kicked off our comprehensive planning and rewriting our entire comp plan. It's crucial that we signal to potential investors and stakeholders that the town of Dumfries is open for business. Despite Churchill's Downs' relatively short tenure as the owner of Colonial Downs, Rosie's and the Rose, they've demonstrated, you all have demonstrated a commitment to understanding and engaging with our community. Like any relationship, disagreements may arise, but it's essential to acknowledge your efforts, the efforts that has been made by Colonial Downs to find a compromise. Regarding the initial perspective that we're voting to sacrifice the promised opening of the community park at the same time as the gaming facility, AKA the casino, for financial gain, it's crucial to recognize the complexities underlying this original proffer agreement that's before us. Right? So when you look at the original proffer, when we first entered into this agreement, neither our council nor our staff had any experience in closing down a landfill. Furthermore, there still remains a misconception amongst the public that this entire project is situated on a former landfill site, when in fact, it occupies only 15 acres adjacent to I-95, untouched by any landfill operations because it was previously zoned residential, and we rezoned this mixed use. While it's disappointing to me that the construction in the original proffer of the 40,000 square feet entertainment space, including the theater and center, was always contingent on the second tower. It's clearly stated in this proffer agreement. I'm happy to hear that it aligns right now and to maintain a lot of transparency about these aspects and to manage the public expectations that now with this MOU and this LOI, we're showing significant strides have been made towards addressing the community's concerns and ensuring that we have mutual benefits in this. The commitment for a parking study of phase 2 within 6 months of opening the park, which you are pretty sure, you can't say, but pretty sure it's going to be open this summer. It's outlined in the addendum, and it underscores our commitment to addressing infrastructure needs in tandem with development. Now, this compromise is a testament, because it wasn't even originally in the negotiated, but this compromise is a testament to your willingness, our willingness to collaborate and to prioritize the greater good of our community. Additionally, I think it bears repeating that Colonial Downs has remained committed to not just being a business in our town, but to being a community partner. One who gives back to the community with countless volunteer hours from their staff at various town and community events. A community partner that since 2021 has put back unsolicited 180,000 plus to 97 different charities in and around this community through your Rosie Gives Back program. In the last 2 years, you even continued after the landfill closed down to sponsor our annual fireworks show, and we appreciate that. So I just want to say in closing that I think for me, it's to continue to remain focused on the broader goals of economic growth, community engagement, and sustainable development. I think by working together and embracing this compromise, we can ensure that this Rose project not only fulfills its potential as a driver of economic prosperity, but also enhances the quality of life of the residents of the town of Dumfries. So I want to thank the town council and the town staff for collectively bringing all their ideas when we started talking about all the things we wanted and all the things we needed. And I look forward to seeing how we'll address all 3 of these separately, or we can do this in one collective motion. Madam Attorney, the floor is yours.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would recommend that we address the proffer statement first, the amendment of that particular ordinance. And then at the council's pleasure, you can either take the 2 agreements up together or you can address those separately. But please do this proffer separately. Thank you.
Madam Vice Mayor.
I'd like to propose that we strike the language in the proffer that I questioned about the parking spaces.
What page in the proffer? So are you doing this in the form of a, Madam?
Do I need to do that as a motion, Madam Attorney?
Would you repeat your question, please?
So I questioned section, let's see, I believe this is section 4, item B, where I was questioning here about this phase 2. Because the way this is written, it makes it seem as though the parking spaces, the amount of parking spaces had provisions. And when it was explained, he pretty much explained it as it's irrelevant. These provisions, it's irrelevant, that the parking spaces will be as written in the proffers, that it would be what was the amount of parking spaces?
Approximately 2,500.
Yeah, the amount of parking spaces are already predetermined and they would not change, the 2,541. But the way this is written here makes it sound like there are provisions to that amount of parking spaces. So I recommend we just remove that whole section, that item C. The theater event center, provided there are enough parking spaces to park. So I recommend we remove item C.
I think there are two challenges with making that change at this moment. I believe it's in the council's discretion to do that. But the concerns that I have are these. First of all, the representation by the applicant is that all of the parking spaces that were required by the original proffers have been built out. And so in theory, there would be no other requirement to build or construct an additional parking. Secondly, the language to which you're pointing was a language that has not been proposed to be changed here in this particular transaction. And so while we can modify the original terms, I think that has to be by agreement with the applicant because those were not put before this body for action or consideration tonight. And then the last is, in view of the fact that the representation is no additional parking is required, we don't know the sort of unintended effects of taking this language out at this particular time, again, because it was not contemplated for discussion or action tonight. So those are my concerns. I believe if the applicant agrees, which there would have to be an agreement on that, you can move forward tonight.
Well, because as I read it and as it reads here, it looks like it's a provision for which the theater, it says, provided it has constructed yada, 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 but based on the way the gentleman explained what this means, it's irrelevant. So then why is it in here? If it's irrelevant, then it doesn't need to be in here.
And your point is well taken, but I will remind you that prior to the proposed amendments, everything that is contemplated as phase 2 was in the discretion of the applicant. So maybe that is why that language was constructed as it was in the original. While, there are a number of amenities that people have been pointing to that fall within phase 2, and they've been expressed in terms of maybe not getting those things at the end of this project, based on how the original proffer statement was approved. There was an understanding that nothing in phase 2 might be delivered. And so, again, I think that in light of where we are now with what was actually proposed to be changed, if the applicant agrees for that language to be taken out, you surely can go forward with that tonight. But I don't feel comfortable with knowing all of the potential outcomes of taking that language out right now when that was not contemplated coming into the meeting.
Okay, so then let me ask you, town attorney, yes or no question. Do you think that it is necessary to remove this language? Yes or no?
No.
Thank you. Then I'm done with it. Okay.
All right, so the public hearing is completed. We've exhausted the conversation here and had all the questions. We have 3 documents before us. We have currently addendum with the proffer statement. We have an MOU and we have an LOI. I think the attorney made the recommendation that we vote on the proffer agreement and then maybe the MOU and the LOI separately. Councilman P.
Mr. Mayor, with respect, I'd like to ask that we make a motion to move forward with the proper agreement.
There's been motion.
Second.
Okay, and second, any discussion? Councilman Fields.
Well, it's already been second. I was going to ask for the record, could the town attorney read the proffer for the record so we can?
No, it's pretty big.
Oh, it's pretty big.
Yeah.
Okay, but everybody understands?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure everybody understands. I don't want to go through that again. We've
All
had
right.
this happen before.
All right, so
So I want to make sure everybody's clear on their language.
the motion and it's been seconded. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none. This is to amend the proper statement for CDG mixed use development with all the strikes. I will now call for the question, Councilman Phillips.
Yes.
Councilman P.
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem.
Aye.
Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Councilman Brown.
Nay.
And Councilwoman Peterson.
Aye.
And that's a yes for me. That motion carries 6-0 on the proffer statements. 6-1, I'm sorry, 6-1. All right. Now we have before us a MOU and a LOI.
Mayor,
Yes.
if allowed, I'll make a motion that we do both at the same time.
Okay. That's your motion?
That's my motion.
Okay.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned and second. Any discussion? I'd just like to say, in regards to the MOU and in regards to the whole proffer statement, I just want to say that this was advertised 2 consecutive weeks, February 1st and February. The clerk has the can attest that this was advertised in the newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks and has copies of that advertisement if anybody needs to see that. Also, I also want to note that the $3 million is not a payment for us to do this. It's unrealized taxes, right? So we were planning to open up in October in the negotiation. Our staff went back with the council's thoughts and they negotiated in this MOU unrealized taxes because we did not open in October. We thought we were supposed to open in August, so we asked for a little bit more money. They said, no, it was October. So this is unrealized taxes because we were promised to open. All right, so now we didn't open in October, but we budgeted for this in our budget. Many stories were ran that said, hey, Dumfries had to amend their budget because the roads was delayed. And so as a result of the delay, we were able to go back and renegotiate that back into our budget for unrealized revenue. And now if it doesn't open in this MOU, now we have a little bit more teeth to say, hey, if you don't open by July 31st, you will continue to pay us monthly revenue. And now it sets us forth in our budget process so that we can continue to go forward. And so this MOU also gives us another guarantee that we will get phase 2 and we will have, it's enough teeth in this that we're gonna have all of these amenities as promised to the community. So that's all my discussion is on this. Is to just say that this is not a payment for us to vote for this. This is unrealized taxes. So we're going, all right, any other discussion? Seeing none, I will now call for the question on that. Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Councilman Brown.
Nay.
Councilwoman Peterson.
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem.
Aye.
Councilman Pete.
Yes.
Councilman Fields.
Yes.
And that's a yes for me. That motion carries 6-1. All right, Vice Mayor.
Town manager, I want to ask about the bathrooms.
Yes, ma'am.
So, the bathrooms that are proposed in the park,
Yes, ma'am.
how did we get to a point of the design for the bathrooms? I ask that because when it was presented to us as council, by the time it was presented to us, it was already an agreed upon design. And I don't recall it ever being discussed with the council. By the time it was presented to us, it was a design that was already agreed upon with no room for change or no room for input from the council. How did we get to that point?
Staff has been working with CDG over the last 2 years to develop a design for the park. And it is true, it has not been brought back before council, so I will apologize on behalf of staff.
So I would appreciate, and I don't know if I'm at liberty to speak on behalf of the rest of the council, but I would appreciate for decisions like that moving forward, that the council is brought in on those decisions, because as I've spoken to most of council members up here, there's a concern with the design of the bathrooms, and that we didn't have any input on that, and that there's a lack of satisfaction on what we ended up with, and that we didn't have any input on that, and that staff made unilateral decisions on what those bathrooms would look like without the input of council, and that's typically not the way things are done.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, we've exhausted our agenda. So at this time, 8:44, I'm gonna adjourn this meeting.